All right, everyone. Good evening. My name is Tim Palmer. Welcome to Looper Talk. It is a solo episode. We're going to talk about the grassroots movement called Reimagine PGA. But first, have you ever wanted to join a country club? Well, now you have access to an online one called the Country Club. It has everything that a country club has, from business connections to golf information, hanging out with people on the internet. It is amazing. It is called The Country Club. If you are interested in joining, I will have a link in the descriptions that will give you that access. Tonight's episode is about a movement called Reimagine PGA. And I found this online today, and I found it so intriguing that I needed to talk about it. So, what it is a group of Class A PGA professionals. They got together and created this movement to change the PGA of America. Most of what they're trying to change is the transparency within the organization. Also, they want to change how money is distributed. And so we're going to talk about that today. I believe this is a movement that has been necessary for a long time. I have been talking about problems with the PGA of America for the last 5 months now. And now we are finally seeing a movement. Not exactly sure when it came about, but I want to talk about it. And I think it is necessary. And I also have some conspiracy theories attached to it. So let me get in my notes. Offgate again, it is a grassroots movement. You can go on the internet, type in www.reimaginepga.com. It'll explain it all for you. The movement is started by Class A members like myself. It is not affiliated with the PGA of America or the PGA Tour. Again, it is a movement of a group of individuals amongst an organization that want to create change. This is what Looper Talk is all about. Therefore, I'm excited for these individuals that decided to stand up and make a change for what's right within that organization. Why did the movement start? To me, I believe they are starting to see the money and how the money is distributed amongst the PGA, especially within the corporate PGA. You have your CEO, the CFO, CCO, all these corporate positions are making somewhere between 800,000 to $3.5 million. And your average Class A professional is making around 10 to 12,000 less than the annual cost of living. So from my gut, what it's telling me is they're starting to get fed up with having to pay all these dues, all these necessary fees to maintain an accreditation. Yet the organization that upholds this accreditation is not taking care of these professionals that are taking care of it. So therefore, these PGA Class A professionals are tired of being the lowest on the totem pole. They want the finances within the organization to be distributed accordingly because it is necessary. And this is an ongoing problem that has not been dealt with at all. This grassroots movement is going to create awareness in hopes that more PGA professionals will get behind it and therefore a change will then happen. Yeah, one of the notes I wrote is they feel like the corporate leadership has become too centralized and too corporate, obviously. And what they're saying here is they're becoming greedy because they have all this revenue from the Ryder Cup and the PGA Championship, and it could be distributed accordingly to really help out these professionals. They feel that it's not. Most of these corporate jobs, again, the CEO, the CCO, they're making a lot of money, while the struggling Class A professionals are not. It's pretty self-explanatory. So what the members want and what I have been preaching about is they want more insight on how these finances are distributed. They want more insight on decision-making where this money goes, and they want more insight on how the organization is ran in regards to these situations. And that's why they want things to be more transparent, because the more transparent an organization is, the more feedback the professionals can provide, and also the more awareness that the PGA professionals will have as to why they're making the decisions that they're making. The organization itself needs to be transparent so that the people that are involved in that organization feel, one, a part of it, but two, they have an understanding of what's going on, and they won't have this underlying suspicion about certain ideas or questions that they're not getting answered. So this would really help. If you want to put it in more of a simpler term, it'll help the morale within the organization, because the morale is very low when you look at the PGA show, and we have to do it. So for Class A members, we have to get PDR points every 3-year cycle. And within these PDR points, someone like me who's an A24, we don't have the access to get a lot of these PDRs through a pro shop because we don't work in a pro shop. So most of us are watching these videos online and taking tests. It's a continuing education program. The most interesting part I find in all this is when you're watching these videos and it's people talking about parts of the organization, improvements. What was the one I was watching the other night? Second Swing Golf is involved. So they're talking about clubs being sold online that were used, and how that's organizations ran by PGA professionals, and how that organization is helping give back to the PGA. Like yada, 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 yada. Or like work and wellness, or wellness within the workplace, how we can help with mental health amongst PGA professionals. Again, this is all a bunch of bullshit. But the amount of people that attend these meetings is slim to none. I'm not kidding you. I'm talking 6 people, maybe up to 30 people max, from what I've seen. So the PGA professionals don't really have the confidence in the upper management that they're being taken care of. You can even hear it in a lot of these guys' voices and ladies' voices when they ask questions to these people about certain situations. The the dance around answer that these guys receive is a bunch of bullshit. The PGA of America, to me, as I've always said, they don't care about their professionals. They make it seem like they're not responsible for their professionals, but yet we are responsible for paying them dues. We are responsible for PDR points. So there's many requirements to maintain your Class A membership, but the receiving end of having this accreditation is so one-sided that the PGA professionals, like the Reimagine Golf was what they're or the Reimagine PGA grassroots movement. This is why this movement is happening, because the people amongst that organization are just getting tired of the one-sided situation that they're constantly up against. Not to mention the amount of revenue that the PGA of America has brought in. They were able to build a $500 million plus dollar facility down in PGA Frisco, which is in Frisco, Texas. It is massive. 2 golf courses, they probably even have a par 3. Again, I don't know, but from what I've researched and what I've noticed about it, there's a lot of money into it. And so where's this money coming from? And it's a nonprofit organization. So most of your corporate staff, when you look at their budgets, the money that they receive is not under profit in essence. God, it's like outlier cost or outlier expenses, I think. So what the PGA of America does is they give the corporate managers or people involved in corporate, they give them money because that money is supposed to cover expenses, but the money that they receive is so extraordinary that things just don't add up. So, again, this is why we have the Reimagine PGA. This is why the grassroots movement is started. This is why you have me behind the camera just talking my shit because something needs to change. I got conspiracies around this. This is going to be alleged stuff. But let's see what I have next. The golf industry, the revenues amongst that have exploded. We know that you have the major championships, these TV deals, the Ryder Cup. And so these PGA professionals don't feel like they are part of this financial growth, even though they're working at these facilities and maintaining these facilities so that the PGA Tour and the PGA Championship and the Ryder Cup can have facilities to play their events at and receive all this revenue. So, again, this is all just repeating what I've said. There needs to be a change. There needs to be more transparency, and there needs to be more of a delegation on how this revenue gets distributed. And the PGA of America needs to start taking care of their professionals because the organization itself, they're having to dumb down the PGM program, even the associates program. Everything is dumbed down. I even heard through the grapevine they might get rid of the PAT. That would be terrible because these professionals, they're having a hard time retaining people in the business. So, again, you can go to a previous podcast where I said PGA of America solutions, and then you go down to the bottom of my page where I have PGA politics, and we talked about this again and again. So for those who don't know, please go to my page, look that up. That'll give you way more insight and facts behind all this. I don't want to keep beating a dead horse. So what I'm focusing this episode on is the Reimagine PGA. You should go to their website, check out what they're about. I'm kind of promoting them for what they're doing. They do a good job in terms of explaining why they're doing what they're doing. Okay, so let's get into the conspiracy stuff. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. More visibility for executive salaries. We know. Which, if you go on ProPublica, by the way, it's just a .com. It might be .org. You can just type in PGA of America ProPublica, PUBLICA. It'll show you where the revenue is going to in terms of salaries for the corporate office. And this is where I'm going to get with the Derek Sprague shit. Because he was the CEO, and the CEO makes around 2.5 to 3.5 million. It is the highest paying job in the PGA of America Association. It is the creme of the creme. You are a millionaire. You are getting fat checks. Yes. Okay, so what happened was Derek Sprague only lasted a year. And then he kapoof, gone, done. And okay, before we start this is alleged. I feel like Candace Owens there. It's alleged. So don't go around being like, well, Looper Talk said this. It's alleged, but this is my gut feelings. And being a part of the organization for 8 years, 9 years now, I think that these alleged propositions, I shouldn't be that far off. But these are my gut instincts. So we all know what happened in the most recent Ryder Cup up in New York. There was a lot of verbal language that was derogatory towards the players. The players were doing the same towards the fans. It turned into a pissing match. Rory didn't like it. Again, the fans were saying some nasty stuff. They're in New York. New Yorkers are not known for being the nicest people. I mean, can you imagine living there? Oh, don't get me started. Anyways, so a lot of people assume that's why he resigned. And to me, maybe 50-50, that could be part of why he resigned. But for the life of me, I was thinking, how could a tournament when language was just exchanged back and forth, how could that affect the CEO? Oh, well, maybe he didn't run the tournament well. Well, he doesn't run the tournaments. He runs the PGA organization. As long as the Ryder Cup is making money, they're not going to step down a CEO. Now, if he put things in place or maybe he didn't reprimand the right way, maybe. But this is what I think. Okay, I don't really think it's just the Ryder Cup situation. This is what I think. I think something happened financially within that organization that he got caught taking members' money, maybe using it for his own good. Because why is the Reimagine PGA so consistent on being transparent? Now, again, this is alleged. These are not facts. These are just my propositions and what I believe makes the most sense. Because the CEO is, to me, is responsible for the financials amongst this organization, period. He's not responsible for how fans act at a tournament. Now, yes, the Ryder Cup does make them the most revenue, but they still made a good amount of money that tournament. And Ryder Cup, that's a really hard tournament to fuck up because that's one of the biggest tournaments every 2 years. It is really a big deal for the players. They feel, especially the European team, it means much more than golf in that tournament. So they will always have players that are adequate enough and create and will provide an experience for the fans, and the fans will always be emotionally invested in it because anytime you have teams that are based upon nations or countries, then you start to get not only emotional attachment from the sport, but you get deeper emotional attachment because of it being a national experience or excuse me, an international experience. Hey, this is my country. This is what we represent. Even though it's just a sport, we're Americans. I wear the red, white, and blue. So there's a deeper need to watch that tournament. It's much more emotional. Like we get more emotionally attached to stuff like that, which is why I think Live Golf sort of sets it up like they do. But anyways, so why did he resign in a year? That's very interesting. Now he was the general manager at Sawgrass, I believe, for a good while, 5+ years. That was paying 400 to 500,000 a year. Good job. Good. He's living right, comfortable, doesn't have to worry about bills. But then you get into a CEO position where you're making 6 times potential the amount of money. Like we're talking next level. You have just upped your ranks. You are now in a position to where your grandkids are set for life. Okay. And his excuse was that his mom was sick. Wouldn't you want to be in that position when your mom is sick? Because then going down the road, you will have adequate money to not only afford the best healthcare possible, but you are going to benefit your family in the long run? Why would you want to get rid of that opportunity? That makes no sense to me. It's nothing's adding up there. And then we have this Reimagine PGA grassroots movement. All these PGA professionals are pissed off, so they're starting to create a legit movement that's mature and that has propositions and ideas that are really conducive to helping these PGA professionals out. Why would they be so emotionally ready to do this? So this is what I really think. Again, something happened with Derek Sprague. This is alleged, and something happened to where finances were not going the right direction. Whether he was taking members' money, whether the Ryder Cup revenue wasn't getting distributed correctly, or the PGA Championship money wasn't getting distributed correctly. Maybe he was taking out loans on the PGA Frisco facility that the PGA didn't know about. I don't know. My gut tells me he was doing something financially that was not right. And so they had to let him go. And in order for the PGA of America to maintain their image, because if something like that went public and we found out about what was going on, there would be many PGA professionals that would say, fuck this, we're done. I'm not spending all this money on dues. I don't want to spend all this time and effort on PDRs to maintain my accreditation when you are just taking my money. Because going to educational meetings, going to seminars, going to tournaments, all this costs money, all of it. And yes, we know that the PGA, they need to be paid too, but they're a nonprofit entity. So any excess money that goes above their salary in the corporate office needs to be distributed correctly. And again, why not use that money to help get these PGA professionals an adequate way of life so they could afford a home even because most of them can't. And obviously they don't give a shit about us, or if they did, we wouldn't be in the situation to begin with. So for you PGA professionals that are watching this, you need to start really thinking what's going on here, and we need to get behind this Reimagine PGA movement. This is something that will really benefit all of us, and this is what begins a change that is necessary. Those are my thoughts. I think Derek was dipping his hand in our money, and people found out about it, so he had to resign. So he makes a bullshit resignation statement that makes zero sense to anything. And now you're left with a grassroots movement that wants more transparency amongst finances. Yeah, there's a reason why they want that transparency because somebody somewhere got wind of something that if we found out about it, boy, you talk about pissing us off. We're already pissed off as it is because we don't get paid that much. Now you have corporate America or corporate PGA taking money from us after the shit we all do for them. Ooh, baby. That would be a domino effect that would not be good for them. So think about it. Look up Reimagine PGA. And it's again, Reimagine PGA, all one word.com. I read the whole thing this afternoon. I loved it. They really did a very mature way of doing this. And I think that's a great start to shedding light on what needs to happen for PGA professionals. And if anyone is a part of this Reimagine group and you see this and you see myself and you want to contact me, please feel free to do it. My email is tim@loopertalk1927.com. So feel free to give me some love there. And that's it for the episode. So yeah. And again, this is alleged about the Derek Sprague stuff. I'm not saying fuck the PGA of America, even though part of me does want to sometimes. I really believe in the organization and I believe that it's necessary for the golf business. But some things are not clicking, not making sense, and we need to be a part of this change. And I'm glad to see a grassroots movement like the Reimagine PGA begin to start making this aware to the PGA professionals in hopes that it will change. So feel free to shoot me a comment, like my page, subscribe. That way, if we want to talk in the future, I gave you my email. Whatever I can do to help, please let me know. Very thankful for the people who started that grassroots movement. And yeah, anything else, I'll be more than happy to help. So thanks again for listening to Looper Talk. My name is Tim Palmer. And don't forget, lighten your bags, 200 a strap. Y'all have a good night.